Welcome to the Addict to the Brush. We're carrying on with the kit bashed Deathguard Defiler, and whilst between videos, between parts, all I've done is so far that you haven't seen is I've just given the forelimbs and metallic parts a quick dry brush with some Iron Warrior base coat, just to darken down the top parts of the metal to a darker finish than what they would have been if we'd used the lead belcher that was used as the primary spray. So now that rattling grime and that is dry on all those, we're going to put some enamel thinners and that on in a bit. But before we get to that, I've got some Iron Warrior that I need to put into one of the limbs, and then we can get on to starting on the flesh. So I've just dismantled that for the time being. So I'm taking a smaller brush, not too small, but thin enough. I'm just going to take a little bit of Iron Warrior, more or less neat from the pot, because I've got to dab a little bit of Iron Warrior into the recesses on the forelimb, because the cables seem to come a fair way down, and then I can re-establish the base coat for the flesh when I'm doing all of the bits of flesh in a minute. And apologies, I think my stomach may rumble again on camera. Yeah, it's just going there. Don't know why it's gurgling. It's been fed. So I've just got a bit of Iron Warrior in there to start with. We will refine that at a later date. But the base colour that I used for the flesh was Tamiya standard NATO camo brown, but I think Doomball is probably a close match for it. So I just want to try and re-establish. It's a little redder, but it doesn't matter. It's close. So I'm just going to re-establish some of this on here. I'm not going to cover the whole part. Just want to try and get into the recesses, bits that we haven't got. It's a case of I'm not going to worry too much, because this isn't going to be the final colour. I just want to make sure that any areas where we've already got overspill from what we've done earlier is just rubbed out for this base coat, so that I can then put the flesh tones on without worrying about this showing through. At the moment this is still too thin. And it doesn't matter too much, because a lot of the edge areas will be a slightly different colour anyway, but I just want to get to the point where I feel that I'm happy that we've got something close to the base colour back in. I'm doing it in this way because the armour trim seems to have been the outermost part on a lot of the model. So by doing this now, hopefully we can concentrate on just getting the armour trim done afterwards, because we'll have done all the other bits that we need to beforehand. Not worry too much. No, that's going to have a metal part in it, so I just want to get some of this in the deeper recesses. Not that that'll matter when we put the next colour in. Going to help in a few places where we've got flesh meat in metal and stuff. It's like here we're going to have flesh, and then we get into the trim. So if I get the flesh done first, I don't have to worry about the trim, and hopefully if I do it carefully enough I won't get it all over the bits I don't want it on. Yeah, I think there are a few bits that might need a little bit of correction of the bone colour afterwards, but hopefully it's not too bad, especially as you won't tend to see that part of the model. Just a little bit of the underside, it's gone a little bit pale. Again, it doesn't matter too much because we are putting quite a few other colours over the top of this. I just want to try and knock it back to start with. I feel it's a little bit more uniform in colour. The real bugbear is the top. That's where we're going to need to do a bit more work. So I'm going to thicken this paint up a little bit more. It's a little bit tricky to see on part of this where the flesh starts and where the metal begins. So I'm just going to treat most of the shoulder, apart from the knuckle, as being flesh. Yes, we will have to pick out the cables afterwards, which will be slightly more tricky, but it's easier doing it this way round. So nearly there. So that's that side done for what we need. And the other side. need to get a little more paint. This shan't take long now. Just making sure I've got it in the recesses, because that way if we do miss any bits in painting the flesh, they'll just look like part of the recesses. They won't stand out as base coat showing through, or base colour like prime. Come back to there in a minute. Just do this part. So just going to come around and do the underside on the back now. Bring some of this colour down just to make sure where it joins that it's painted. And it isn't a perfect colour match for the Tamiya NATO camo brown, but it's close enough for the base coat for the flesh that it won't matter. Missed a bit. Well, the camera died at the very end there, so we've just finished off the base coat of Doombull brown on the upper body. And just put some onto the arm. The very final thing is I'm going to do is I'm just going to come back in and layer a little bit of this Doombull brown around, just to try and lighten the flesh colour a little bit, so that when we do the whole thing, things match a little better. At least that's the hope. Don't need a lot. It probably won't even do anything, to be honest. No, I don't think it even is. It's too thin over the Tamiya. Oh well, it doesn't matter. I will leave that to dry off in a second. Run some more of this up there. It's just the way I see it, it's just going to help later on. That'll do. So I'm going to leave that to dry. The other thing I'm going to do, I'm already bits in ready to take away to dry, but the steel on the legs is looking very steel like, but it doesn't look very Nurgle yet, and it looks too clean. So I've gone and got my enamel thinners and a big brush, and what I'm going to do is I've got some scungy brown mixed up in here previously. I'm going to add some more thinners to it just to freshen it up a little bit. And this time I'm going to play with all my oil paints at the same time. So I'm actually mixing stuff together here. This is Winsor & Newton Burnt Umber. It's an oil paint, and I'm just going to take a little bit off my brush, not a large amount, just a little bit, just to add to my enamel thinners. Believe it's soluble in it, which we'll see in a second if I'm about to mess up something. No, the brown oil paint does mix in, which is nice. So this is got quite a brown hint to it, and what I'm going to do is just layer it on and leave it to dry. I'm going to have to do both sides and just leave it to hang, but it should darken down the metal again, making it look more brown and more dirty, which is what I want. And I don't want to use large amounts of typhus corrosion at this stage on the model. Yeah, I could have used typhus corrosion, would have probably achieved more or less the same look and effect, but I would have used most of a pot, I think, and I would have ruined that brush from being used to do anything ever again. Whereas at least this way, this brush in particular is kept for doing oil and enamel washes, so it doesn't bother me in that sense. And yeah, so I'm going to end up with quite a bit of this over my fingers if I'm not careful. It's just darkening down those plates. I've got a tile already set apart to dry these on. I'm going to put them across a heater. And again, this will help when we come to add any verdigris or any iron oxide rust effects, because it will work off the brown that we've already just put there. hardest part of this is not getting it all over your fingers. And I would do this in a well ventilated environment, preferably outside if you can, out of direct sunlight, because the stuff evaporates so fast. You want to be in shade, and sunlight will cause it to evaporate even faster. But somewhere well ventilated, window open, door open preferably. Best off wearing some kind of vapour mask. If I wasn't filming it, I would have my respirator on, but I've got the windows and doors open for this, so I don't feel too worried. Maybe famous last words. So I'm just literally dousing the part. Yeah, getting slippery, getting stuff on my hands. At this point, I want to try and touch it as little as possible if I can help it. I don't want to try and rub anything off. It's at this point that the enamel thinners is most likely to attack your paint, if it's going to. Not that I'm saying I've ever had a problem with it before. I'm literally just dousing the part with this. I'm not even going to wash or brush any of it off. I want that darker tone. This will be a little bit careful I don't get all over my fingers. So I just want to try and get these technical parts, part of the actual scouge. And I want to try and make sure I'm not flicking this stuff everywhere as well. Just change the angle and draw the stuff down it. That should be sufficient for what we need. And the last part that I'm going to put any metallics on at the moment. So that's the last part that I need to darken down. It's just the edge of the gun. I'm try and avoid the body as much as possible. The nice thing with this stuff is that it will run quite a distance, so I can keep my distance from the parts I really don't want it on. Just dab out the barrels, just get them darker. You don't look, aren't we? So I'm going to leave those parts to dry. Clean my brush off, seal my part up, and I shall be back once those are dry, and we'll carry on with the flesh.